Are you ready for the final section of the Geogradient Shawl? This is my favorite technique that we're doing this week, and it's a dip stitch technique. So it's something I haven't done in a shawl before, and I've seen in some other patterns and stitch dictionaries and such. It's so much fun creating these beautiful long stitches. So this might be a new technique for you. So what you're going to find in your PDF are some swatch instructions of the dip stitch, and then also row 1 of the shawl. So if you've never done these dip stitches before, or you don't know what a dip stitch is, I recommend getting some extra yarn, just some scrap yarn from your stash, just to play around with this technique using the swatch instructions. It starts off really, really easy. So follow the swatch in the outline box of your PDF, and you can cast on just cast on 18 stitches. So really easy, cast on 18 stitches, and we're gonna increase and do the dip stitch. And then row 7, you can skip ahead in this video to watch row 7, and that's the same technique that you can apply to your swatch, okay? So I'm gonna show you how to do the dip stitch on your shawl, but it's a lot of stitches, so I wouldn't try the dip stitch for the very first time on your actual shawl, because if you make a mistake, then you might have to rip out all those stitches that you picked up. So practice on the short little swatch, and I'm gonna show you what it looks like. So here's a little spoiler alert of the dip stitch. Are you ready? So this is what we're gonna be doing. So we're gonna cast on just a few stitches, 18 stitches for a swatch, and look at that beautiful long stitch technique. So the first rows of the swatch are just stockinette stitch, knit on the right side, purl on the wrong side. I mean, look at the wrong side of this pattern too. It's so cool. So work the first 6 rows really, really easy in the swatch instructions. And then row 7 is where this really cool technique happens with a new color using a technique called dip 5. So try it out on the swatch, watch the video, skip ahead in this video to row 7 to see how to do that technique, and then get accustomed to it. It's gonna feel weird at first, but it's gonna look so cool and feel really, really fun the more times you practice it with a few other stripes. And then you can go, all right, thanks, Stephen. Thanks for that swatch. I got it. Let's pick up stitches for the shawl. So before we get into the shawl, this is the opportunity to customize the size of your shawl. So follow the pattern as written and knit the recommended number of stripes to get a border, and I added some optional fringe at the end of my shawl. So follow it as written, just like mine. But if you're worried about running out of yarn, or if you've used some of your yarn in the first clue 1 that you tried and you don't want to reuse that yarn or rip it out, so if you think you're running a little bit low on yarn, I recommend having a kitchen scale. This is going to help you weigh how much yarn you have before the clue, and say you have 40 grams of a color, and then weigh it before you knit, and then after you knit like a 6-row stripe, see how much yarn you used, and weigh your yarn again, and go, oh, I have 20 grams left, or I have 30 grams left. So that's going to tell you how much yarn you used for a stripe, okay? So if you weigh your yarn before and then weigh your yarn after one of those 6-row stripes, so this is a 6-row stripe, 1 complete color stripe, then you might know, oh, I used 15 grams for that stripe. And so you can plan that you could do another stripe with that color, or know that you have enough yarn to bind off. You're going to need about 10 grams total of any color to do the I-cord bind off. So follow the rows exactly as written. I did my border after finishing row 26 of my shawl, but if you want to stop early, you could skip ahead to the finishing instructions after completing row 14, a wrong side row, or row 20, another wrong side row. So basically after any of those rows, after rows 14, 20, or 26, those are all really good opportunities to bind off. And you could even use an extra color pop to bind off if you want. But you're gonna need about 10 grams to bind off, and then any leftover fringe after you bind off. If you're like, oh, my border is still a little small, any leftover yarn you have, you can add some fringe at the end to get a bigger shawl and use up all those yarns. You could use up any yarns that you previously knitted for swatches or original clue 1 squares. You could recycle that yarn and add it as fringe, cut it all up and fringify your shawl. So lots of options to customize the size, and there's even extra rows. So if you have a lot of extra yarn and you haven't used it all, or if you're grabbing extra colors from your stash to make your border even bigger, there's optional bonus rows in this section to knit your border twice as big. Okay, so I'm gonna give you another spoiler alert because this is gonna help you really see the border and visualize, do you wanna stop early? Do you wanna make a bigger border? Are you ready? So here is the finished shawl border. And I did a crochet version on this West wool sample, and I just love that big, bold stripe kind of diamond effect in the border. And so we are going to be picking up stitches for this section from section 12. So right here is where we're gonna pick up stitches for row 1. The new section 13 continues from the section 12 corner, and you pick up stitches along the entire border of the shawl, all the way down there. Do you see why I did that swatch? So before you pick up and try this new technique, just cast on 18 stitches, knit the swatch with any colors you want, get accustomed to the technique, and then you'll be a pro and make a super beautiful border. So this is the shawl, and then when you wear it, this is the wingspan length. Oh, I love it. And I added little short fringes to mine. You could do thinner fringes, longer fringes. That's another great opportunity to customize the border size. But this is the recommended number of rows 1 through 26 of the border. And then if you want to stop after row 20, then your border will stop here. If you want to stop after row 14, that's also going to look nice with just a 3-color border. You can do that too if you're worried about running out of yarn, or if you just want to finish the shawl. Stop early, skip ahead to the bind off, and you could use a color pop, any color, about 10 grams for the I-cord bind off, or get a new color. Like what if this was like an orange bind off from your stash, or ooh, this dark brown, this new color. You could get a new color in I-cord bind off, or even do a striped I-cord bind off. So get creative. There's a lot of options to really finish this shawl, no matter what yarn amounts you have left. So skip ahead early, or the optional extra border rows will give you a border that's even twice as long. You might need some more yarn for that. So that's for those of you that are not doing the fringe option, then you could knit a longer border, or those of you that are adding even more colors to your border to make sure you don't run out of yarn, then you could make the border really, really big and beautiful if you're addicted to this stitch like I was. So let's get to it. Again, start with the swatch if you want to practice the technique, and then skip ahead to row 7 to see that dip stitch technique. Otherwise, just follow the video as instructed, and I'm going to show you where and how to pick up stitches to work that dip stitch border. Can't wait. We're going to pick up stitches from the I-cord tip of section 12, and we're going to pick up stitches along this straight edge of section 12, and then we're going to pick up stitches all the way along here, here, and then we're going to finish picking up stitches along the straight edge of section 11. Again, if you are working the optional swatch instructions, then skip ahead to row 7, cast on your swatch, and skip ahead in this video to row 7 to watch that dip stitch technique to give it some practice. Otherwise, let's pick up stitches and begin the pickup for section 13. Row 1, right side. Make sure you're looking at section 12 that looks like this. So it's the triangle that has a straight edge on the left edge, and it has that decrease slope on the right edge. This is section 12. Pick up and knit 3 stitches from the I-cord corner of section 12. After that, we're going to get 4 picked up stitches. So to know where you're going to start picking up stitches for those first 3, look at the wrong side and count 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches. Those are the ones we're going to get next. Do you see that? 1, 2, 3, 4. So don't pick up those. Go down 1 more row. So this row will be where we get 3. So I'm going to look at the wrong side, and I'm going to get 1, the first stitch here, and then I'm going to skip a strand and get 1 there for the second stitch, and then I'm going to skip this strand and get this 3rd stitch. Do you see how I just picked up? As long as they're coming from that straight edge or from that smooth edge, that's the 3 stitches picked up. So however you have to pick them up, do that. And now I slid them onto my left needle so that I can knit them with color A. So this is using A, pick up and knit 3 stitches from the I-cord corner of section 12. There they are knitted. Now, make one, pick up and knit 8 13 times along the left I-cord edge of section 12. This is the left I-cord edge of section 12. Make one, pick up and knit 8. Make one using the backwards loop cast on. Pick up and knit 8. We're going to pick up the I-cord stitches that roll towards the wrong side of the fabric, starting 1, 2, 3, 4. Starting into this stitch right here. I'm going to pick up both legs of that I-cord stitch and pull the yarn through. And I need to get 3 more, go through both legs of that I-cord stitch for number 2, 3, 4. So the first 4 come from that corner color, and the next 4 are gonna come from the next color. So this is stitch number 5, 6. If you hold the yarn in your right hand, you're gonna dive in to get both legs of that I-cord stitch. Pull it through. This is stitch number 7 and 8. At the beginning, it might be hard to see what stitches to pick up. Just get any strand of yarn at the beginning. It doesn't matter. As long as you reach this point at the end of that 8th picked up stitch, you should be right here. So if you're not, you could skip a stitch, or you could go into the same stitch again if you're running out of that color. So by stitch number 8, you should be having these 4 and these 4 and ready to work the next color. So make one, pick up and knit 8. Dive in to get both legs. 1, 2, 3, 4. And after the 4, you should have a new color. 5, 6, 7, and 8. After 8, then you should be finished with that little color stripe. So every group of 4 stitches that are picked up are working with these 4 I-cord stitches from each color. After you do 8, remember you have to make one, pick up and knit 8. Keep on going until your stitches are picked up along this entire edge, and then here is where you stop. Do you see where the transition happens from those zigzag slips to that ridge from your center square shape? So after you do the make one, pick up and knit 8 13 times, you should be right here. Keep on going. I just completed the pickup along the left I-cord edge of section 12, and this is what it should look like. And just make sure, again, after you pick up that, remember that was along the straight edge, so it should look like this. Make sure you weren't picking up stitches along that other triangle. If your triangle looks like this and you just picked up stitches here along that diagonal decrease edge from section 11, rip it out. We don't want that. We don't want stitches there. Make sure your shape looks like this. The straight edge with stitches picked up from it from section 12, and that's your diagonal decrease edge on the right there. Now, pick up and knit 8. Make one 10 times along the I-cord bind off edge of section 9. So that's right here. This is our section 9, those eyelets. So from here all the way to this corner, we're going to pick up and knit 8, make one 10 times. So just keep on going, get that next I-cord stitch. It should be a color A I-cord. Pick up and knit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Whenever I'm holding the yarn in my right hand, I pull it a little bit tight so that there's some nice tension to pull that strand through. And this should be the 8th stitch. 2, 4, 6, 8 stitches coming from that edge. And then make 1. We're going to do that 10 total times. I just completed the pick up and knit 8, make 1 10 times. So after you pick up and knit 8, make 1 10 times, you should be just shy, just before that corner. And then the instructions say pick up and knit 5 along the I-cord bound off edge of section 9. Just get 5 more. There should be 5 more color A stitches. If there's not, then just get an extra stitch, or you could skip a stitch. After you pick up and knit 5 along the I-cord bound off edge of section 9, you should pick up all of those color A stitches. So this is where I am after pick up and knit 5 along the I-cord bound off edge of section 9. If you want to double count and make sure you were picking up right, you could go back and see, you remember that last make 1 you did from the section 12 edge? That was the make 1 and knit 8. So this right here was where you started to pick up along the section 9 edge. So if you want to count and make sure you've got the right repeats, but basically just get stitches picked up and knitted until you reach that corner at the end of the bound off edge. Now, pick up and knit 3, make 1 16 times along the I-cord edges of sections 9 and 10. That is here, section 9, and this is section 10. Here. So from here to here, you want to pick up and knit 3, make 1 16 times from here to here. So pick up and knit 3, 1, 2, 3. It might help you, I just picked up and knitted 3. That was the first 3. It might help you to place a temporary stitch marker. We can take this out later, but this might help you count. So you don't have to go back and redo the whole pickup. So this was where the beginning of the pick up and knit 3, make 1 16 times. This is where it began. This is going to help me count later. So pick up and knit 3, make 1. Pick up and knit 3, make 1. We're going to do this 16 total times. Pick up and knit 3, make 1. I placed that marker to help me count, so I know that this was knit 3, make 1. That was the first time. Knit 3, make 1. Second time. Knit 3, make 1. That was the third time. We need 16 total times. Keep on going, picking up stitches from here all the way to this corner. And when you reach the middle part, if it's hard to see what strand to get, just pick up the next strand you see. It doesn't really matter as long as by the time you finish the pick up and knit 3, make 1, you're over here at the corner. I just completed the pick up and knit 3, make 1 16 times along the edges of sections 9 and 10. So it should look like this. If it looks a little holy, that's okay. If some of the stitches look a little stretched out from where you picked up, that's normal. That's what mine looks like. It's gonna look just fine. As you reach the end, when you do that final pick up and knit 3, make 1, you should be reaching the end of this edge. So I just did a make 1. This is my final pick up and knit 3. If it looks like you have a couple extra stitches, you could skip one and go into the next one. 1, 2. This is my final pick up and knit 3, and then my final make 1. And you should be at the edge. Well, it looks like I have one more stitch. That's okay, I'll just skip that one. And then you could place another marker here temporarily to help you count for the next pickup. So from here, this corner to this corner, pick up and knit 3, make 1 16 times. Pick up and knit 8, make 1 10 times along the I-cord bound off edge of section 10. So from this color A bound off edge, from here all the way to here, we're going to pick up and knit 8, make 1 10 times. And the first stitch can be this color A stitch. 1, and I've got my little marker to help me count where this line began. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, make 1. We're going to do that 10 total times. Keep on going until you have stitches picked up all the way to here. Or a little bit shy. Sorry, I lied again. So we're gonna, after that, we're gonna be getting 5 more stitches. So this is the goal, but there's gonna be 5 after that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whoa, you should be about right here after you pick up and knit 8, make 1 10 times. From here all the way to about here. And then after that, we're gonna get 5 more to there. I just completed the pick up and knit 8, make 1 10 times. So from here, I am here now. I just did my final make 1. Now, pick up and knit 5 along the I-cord bound off edge of section 10. So you should be about right here, and we need to get 5 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You should be right here. So it should kind of line up. You should aim to finish that final 5th picked up stitch right where this purl ridge ends and where that zigzag slip begins. So you could place a marker. If you're not there, you could skip a stitch if you need to get a little further, or you could go into the same stitch for that final 5th stitch if you need to. It doesn't really matter. Just place a marker to help you count. So that's the end of that line. And now we need to pick up and knit 8, make 1 13 times along the right I-cord edge of section 11. So if we're looking at section 11 like this, with the straight edge and that diagonal edge, this is the right edge of section 11, which makes sense because we're just gonna keep on, basically just keep on picking up stitches. The first stitches you pick up, there should be 4 color A stitches. If not, then just make sure that you go into that color A edge for your first 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You should be right here after the 4. If you're not, then just make it work. Sneak in an extra stitch or skip a stitch, whatever you need to do. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. We need to get 8. Here's stitch number 5, 6, 7, 8. Make 1. Do that 13 times. Pick up and knit 8, make 1 13 times along this edge. Here's the second time. Pick up and knit 8, 3, 4. And after every 4 stitches, you should be finished with the little color stripe. So that was 4. 5 goes into the next color. 6, 7, and 8. We're finished with that color. Make 1. Keep on going. Pick up and knit 8, make 1 13 times. I am doing the final pick up and knit 8, make 1 along this edge of section 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. That's the final picked up stitch, and don't forget to make 1. And I know I did that 13 times because I had that marker that helps me count. I did the pick up and knit 8, make 1 13 times. You should be near the tip of that edge, you should have 491 total stitches picked up. Take time to count, okay? Take time to count your total stitch count and make sure you have 491. I was showing you really close exactly where to pick up stitches, but it doesn't matter, okay? As long as you have stitches picked up from here to here, it doesn't really matter. If you're off a stitch or two, just make sure on the next row you get back on track. And if you're missing stitches, like if you only have 488 stitches instead of 491, then during row 2, you could sneak in randomly some extra make ones to get back on track. So at this point, after row 1, it's really important that you have 491 total stitches. Count carefully, and maybe you could place a stitch marker after every 20 stitches or after every 100 stitches to kind of help you count. So if that's 100, and then that helps you keep track of, oh, here's the next 100 to count. And you could place a marker to help you with your counting. And then you have 300, 400. You need 491 total stitches. If you have too many, then you could randomly decrease on row 2. So don't rip out. If you don't have the right stitch count, just keep your stitches in place. It's okay, it doesn't matter. But on row 2, that's your chance to get back on track. Sneak in a make one or a purl 2 together on the wrong side if you don't have 491 stitches at the end of row 1. Go ahead and you can remove your stitch markers if you use them to help you count during row 1. We don't need those. Those were just for helping us count. Row 2, wrong side. Pick up and knit 3 stitches from the I-cord corner of section 11. This is the I-cord corner of section 11. I'm going to pick up the stitches first, starting over here. I'm going to get 1, 2, it doesn't really matter exactly which strands you get. And then a 3rd stitch, dive down, I'll get this one. So that works. 3 strands picked up. They need to be on the left needle. So make sure those 3 picked up strands are on the left needle so you can knit them. 1. It doesn't matter if you knit them through the front or the back loop. Just pick up and knit 3 from the I-cord corner of section 11. It should look like that. Purl to last 3 stitches. Purl all of the stitches until you reach the last 3. And now is your opportunity. If you were counting on row 1 and you didn't have those 491 stitches after row 1, now's your chance to sneak in a decrease if you had too many. If you have to purl 2 together, that's fine. Or if you have to do a make one, if you were missing some stitches, don't do them real close together. If you were missing a few stitches, do 1 here and then sneak in another stitch there and then sneak in another stitch later on in the row. So keep on going. We have those stitches picked up at the beginning of row 2. We're purling to the last 3 stitches, and at the end of row 2, you should have 495 stitches. That's another opportunity to count. And make sure at the end of row 2, you have 495. If you don't, then just get back on track. Sneak in a stitch or sneak in a decrease or however many stitches you need to get back on track. 495 at the end of row 2. At the end of row 2, purling to the last 3 stitches. There's 3 stitches remaining. Make 1. Slip the last 3 stitches with yarn in front. There should be 495 total stitches. Give it a count and make sure you are confident that you have 495 stitches. If not, then just sneak in an extra increase or decrease. Row 3, right side. Knit 3. Make 1. Knit to last 3 stitches, and then slip the last 3 with yarn in front. So we're going to be doing a make 1 increase on the right side here, and on the wrong side, there'll be a make one in the same location at the end of the wrong side. So we're only going to do a make one on this edge. Never do a make one increase at the other edge. It feels weird, but just trust me, okay? So don't do a make one over there. Only do a make one at the beginning of the right side and in the same location here at the end of a wrong side row. Keep on following rows 3 and 4, and then repeat rows 3 and 4 once more for 6 total rows of color A. Keep on going, rows 3 and 4. I just completed rows 5 and 6. I have 499 stitches on my needle, and I have 6 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows with color A. Break color A, leaving a tail. We're gonna do the dip row. This is why I recommend doing that optional swatch. So if you're doing the swatch, this is the same row for row 7. It's a new technique, at least for me. It's probably a new technique for you. So watch this video first and then give it a practice on your swatch, and then you can do it with all of the stitches on your row. So row 7, using B, knit 3, 1, 2, 3, and then do a make one using the backwards loop cast on method. Knit 3, 1, 2, 3, dip 5. Dip 5 works with the next 5 stitches. 5, it works with these 5 stitches. The dip 5 turns 5 stitches into 10 stitches. The dip 5 instruction is starting with knit 1 by inserting the right needle down 5 rows into the left of the 5th stitch. What does that mean? So the first thing you're going to do is count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's your 5th stitch. So you're going to dive down 5 rows after the 5th stitch. So you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You're going to dive into the space between stitches 5 and 6. Wrap the yarn around, pull it through, and we're going to make a long stitch that matches the length of 5 stitches. So when you pull the yarn through, this is the length of 5 stitches. Just pull your needle up, and that's the long first stitch. And then the last thing you do for this stitch is knit 1. That's just the first step, okay? We got to do that 5 total times to represent the dip 5. The next thing you do, I'm going to continue showing continental. If you want to skip ahead, I'll show you English style knitting if you hold the yarn in your right hand. But keep on going if you hold the yarn in your left hand. Dip. We're still doing the dip 5. Knit 1 by inserting the right needle down 4 rows and to the left of the 5th stitch. So this is still that 5th stitch. We're going to go into the same location, 1, 2, 3, 4, but only 4 rows below. Pull the yarn through, making a long stitch that matches the length of 4 stitches. So this strand shouldn't be quite as long as that one, but it doesn't really matter as long as it's a long stitch. And then knit 1. Now we're going to do the same thing, going 3 rows below, 3. Pull a long strand through that matches the length of those 3 stitches. Knit 1. Go 2 rows below, pull yarn through a little bit longer than a normal stitch, knit 1, and finally just go 1 row below. And this is a regular length stitch, and knit 1. Everything I just did represented the dip 5 abbreviation, turning 5 stitches into 10 stitches. Let's do that a little bit more efficiently with continental knitting, and then I'll show for English style knitting. Dip 5. So we're going to dip 5 to the last 3 stitches. So we're going to dip 5, dip 5, dip 5 with every group of 5 stitches. So dip 5, count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the 5th stitch. Go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Don't go into the stitch. That 5th or 6th stitch, you're going in between stitches 5 and 6. Pull the yarn through and pull it to get a long stitch that matches the length of 5 stitches. Knit 1. We always go into that same column. Down 4 rows below. Knit 1. Down 3 rows below. Knit 1. Down 2 rows below. Knit 1. And 1 row below. And knit 1. Dip 5. 5 stitches become 10 stitches. Make sure it's not too tight. I think I could make my stitches maybe just a little bit longer. But this is okay. This works too. If it looks like this, that's fine. I'm going to make it a little bit longer because I love the look of this stitch. One more time. Dip 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is stitch 5. Go in between stitch 5 and stitch 6. So we're going down here. And we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pull the yarn through, give it some loose tension so that you can make a long stitch. Knit 1. That's where we went before, so just go into the 4th one, one above. Pull the yarn through, knit 1. Go 3 rows below, knit 1, 2 rows below, knit 1, and 1 row below, knit 1. Do you see how I always went into that same column? And it looks like that. Let's learn for English style knitting. So dip 5 for English style knitters. Knit 1 by inserting the right needle down 5 rows and to the left of the 5th stitch. What does that mean? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the 5th stitch, and we need to knit to the left of it 5 rows below. Insert the needle, wrap the yarn around, and pull the yarn to make a long stitch that matches the length of 5 stitches. And knit 1. Don't pull the yarn too tight as you're working this technique. So when you knit 1, don't pull it tight like that. You don't want to see this cinch occur. You want to see a nice, loose, long stitch. All right, knit 1 by inserting the right needle down 4 rows and to the left of the 5th stitch. This is still the 5th stitch. Go down 4 rows below. Pull a long strand through and knit 1. Go 3 rows below, pull a long strand through, and knit 1. The long strands are getting a little bit shorter each time you pull the yarn through. Knit 1, and finally we're knitting into 1 row below. Whoops. Pull the yarn through. This is a regular stitch, and knit that 5th and final stitch. 5 stitches become 10 stitches. One more time for you English style knitters. Dip 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the 5th stitch. We need to knit down 5 rows below. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Going in between stitches 5 and 6. 5 rows below. Pull the yarn through. Pull a long strand. So when I do this, I want to keep the stitches spread out on my left needle, so that's a good guide for how long the stitch should be. Don't forget to knit 1. Go 4 rows below. Pull a long strand through. Knit 1. Go 3 rows below. Knit 1. 2 rows below, knit 1, and 1 row below. Knit 1. Keep on practicing with your optional swatch, or if you're knitting the row, pay close attention. This is what it should look like, and it's always good to be a little more generous, I feel, than too tight. This stitch shines beautifully when those stitches are nice and long, and don't stress too much about, oh, is this stitch the right length? Is my third stitch the exact right length? As long as it's pretty long and then it's kind of in the middle and then you have shorter stitches there, it's okay. Don't think about it and stress about it too much. Just feel it out, okay? There's no exact right length as long as you get a long stitch to begin with. Dip 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Down here, 5 rows below, knit 1, 4 rows below. You see how my stitches are spread out on the needle? I just pull my needle to this position, and when I do that, that means that's a pretty good length. 3 rows below, that works. 2 rows below, maybe it's a little too long, I don't know. It also doesn't matter. Oh, I missed my knit 1. Okay, so if I made a mistake, see I was getting too excited, so don't do what I just did. Do you see how I forgot my knit 1? That's a good lesson. So maybe take some time and try to undo a dip, and this is good practice in case you make a boo-boo during this row. So I'm taking these out. I forgot to do my knit 1s after the dips. I'm gonna tink this back. This is how you undo a dip stitch. And make sure your stitches are back on your needle. All right, let's keep on doing that correctly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go down 5 rows below. Knit 1 after each dip stitch. Go down 4 rows below. Knit 1. 3 rows below. Knit 1. 2 rows below. Knit 1 and 1 row below. Knit 1. 5 stitches become 10 stitches. We're going to work these stitches. We're going to decrease on the next row, so you're going to get a lot of stitches during this row. So make sure you have your long circular needle. If your needle's not long enough, then you could work with a couple needles or get a longer circular needle so your stitches fit comfortably. One more time, dip 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to do this until we reach the last 3 stitches. Pull the yarn through, knit 1, go 4 rows below, knit 1, 3 rows below, knit 1, 2 rows below, knit 1, 1 row below, knit 1. That's the dip 5, especially if you're doing the swatch. That's really good practice. And then once you feel comfortable with those swatch rows, you can try it with these hundreds of stitches. That's why I recommend to do the swatch, because if you make a mistake with all these stitches, that can be a pain to have to tink back. So keep on going and get this motif throughout the entire row, and I'll see you at the end of row 7. I'm at the end of row 7 doing the final dip 5. There should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches ready for the dip 5, followed by the final 3 I-cord stitches. So here's the 5th stitch. We're gonna go down 5 rows below, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a little bit hard to see next to the I-cord, but just go down below here, right next to that I-cord, and pull that first long stitch through to knit 1. And then we're going to go down 4 rows below. You could use your needle tip to kind of spread apart the stitches. At the end of the row, it doesn't really matter exactly where you dive the needle into because it's a little bit harder to see. As long as you, there we go, here's the 3rd one. As long as you get something near the edge, you're okay. 2 rows below. And the final stitch, I'm going to go right here. 1 row below. Again, as long as you get something picked up and knitted for that dip stitch at the edge, it should look something like this. Don't matter if it's in the exact right spot. After you do that final dip 5, slip the last 3 stitches with yarn in front. You should have 990 stitches. Whew, that's a lot. Another way to help count your row to make sure you have the right number of stitches, you should have the knit 3, make 1, knit 3 at the beginning of row 7, and you should have 98 clusters of this dip 5 technique. Each cluster represents 10 stitches, so that's a lot of stitches here. You should have 98 of those all the way to the end of row 7. So make sure you have 98 of those clusters, and then you could skip ahead with the timestamps linked down below to watch row 8, but I'm just gonna show you one situation that you may run into. What if at the end of your row 7, you don't have the right number of stitches? I'm just gonna tink back. Again, skip ahead in this video if you wanna keep watching row 8. But what if you're knitting that final dip 5 and you're encountering a different stitch count? I'm just going to tink back my final dip 5. So what if you don't have, so you need to do your final dip 5. I'm just gonna slip these onto my needle. What if you're ready to do your dip 5 and you only have this many stitches? Oh, I need to do a dip 5, but make sure you don't work with the 3 I-cord stitches. You have to slip those 3 with yarn in front. What if I don't have enough stitches? You may have missed some increases earlier. That's okay. If you need to do a dip 5, save those 3 I-cord stitches for the slip 3 with yarn in front. You could still do the dip 5 with fewer stitches, but as you're doing your dips, you could just pick up a strand of yarn when you have to do that knit 1, and this could be a little increase. So just get back on track, okay? Do your dips. This is my 4th dip. Oh, I need to increase another stitch. You just want to make sure that you have 10 stitches represented by that dip 5 technique. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if you have to sneak in some increases, then that's okay. And if you have too many stitches, you could just sneak in a decrease, okay? So if you do the dip and you have too many stitches at the end, you could just knit 2 together to get back on track if you have like 1 or 2 stitches too many. Row 8, wrong side. Knit 3, 2, 3, purl 2 together through the back loop to last 7 stitches. So bring the yarn forward, purl 2 together through the back loop. You're gonna go insert the needle like this through the next 2 stitches. Wrap the yarn around and pull it through. You're gonna do that to every 2 stitches. Purl 2 together through the back loop. I'll do it a few times for you continental knitters. Purl 2 together through the back. So not like this. That's the regular purl 2 together. Through the back, like this. So that right needle goes behind these 2 stitches through the back, like this. Do that until you reach the last 7 stitches. If you hold the yarn in your right hand, purl 2 together through the back. We're gonna do this to every 2 stitches. 2 together, 2 together through the back. Take your time. Most of the border, the rows are really easy, so take it easy. It might feel a little bit weird to purl 2 together through the back. There we go. And then as you do that, remember those clusters are in groups of 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to be turning those 10 stitches back into 5 stitches with the purl 2 together through the back. Purl 2 together through the back. If the stitch feels a little tight to go into, you could loosen it up first. Loosen the 2 stitches up first so that you can easily purl 2 together through the back. If it feels a little tight, loosen them up and then go through 2 through the back. 2 through the back. Keep on going, following this row very closely. Purl 2 together through the back to last 7 stitches. Ooh, that's a little bit tight. Loosen it up. Purl 2 together through the back. 2 together. 2 together. I'm reaching the end of row 8, purling 2 together through the back loop until you reach the last 7 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Purl 4, 2, 3, 4. Make 1. Slip 3 with yarn in front. 1, 2, 3. Row 9, right side. Let's start weaving in some ends using the Weavin Stephen. So you can do this, I think it's easiest to do this on the 3rd row of each new color. So when you join a new color, work that 1st row, and then the wrong side row is the 2nd row with the new color. And when you work the 3rd row with a new color, this is row 9 with color B, knit 3, make 1, and then you can start to do the Weavin Stephen. So I'm gonna take the new tail of yarn and my old tail of yarn that I broke of the previous color and cross it on top of my working yarn as I knit to last 3 stitches. After each stitch, wrap those tails of yarn on top of your working yarn for about 12 stitches or so. I'm knitting to the last 3 stitches during row 9 while doing the Weavin Stephen. Knit and cross. If you hold the yarn in your right hand, knit and cross those tails of yarn on top. You can do this for every color change. I think it's best to do this on the 3rd row when you're using a new color, the 3rd row of a new color. Take the new tail of yarn, that new color, and that old broken tail of yarn, cross them both on top. If you don't do this, then you're just going to have to weave in your ends later at the end of your project, which is also okay, but I like doing it while I'm knitting. Just a couple more times. It's always good to do it a few more extra times than you think, just to be safe. And these ends aren't going to go anywhere. All right, that's enough. You can cut that yarn later. Remember, not too close to the fabric. You can cut the yarn later, about right there, and those ends are woven in. Keep on knitting to the last 3 stitches. Follow your pattern closely. Rows 9, 10, 11, and 12. We are working 6 total rows with each color for this beautiful detail. Look how those clusters are looking for that beautiful dip stitch. I just completed row 12 and I have 505 stitches. Break color B. You just worked 6 total rows with color B. If you're counting your rows, you could count that long stitch as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows with each color. Using C, row 13, we're going to knit 3, make 1, using the backwards loop cast on, knit 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, dip 5 to last 3 stitches. Before you do that, we could just look at our knitting to make sure we have enough stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're gonna dip 5, but look at, after you do that dip 5, you should be right next to that previous dip. So make sure that when the pattern now says dip 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we're gonna do dip 5 there. Just make sure that the next thing you see is 1, that first dip stitch, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's gonna be the next dip 5. Just make sure that you see that and that you're not 1 or 2 stitches off. If you forgot an increase, you might be a stitch off, so you might have to sneak in an extra increase at the beginning of this row. But just make sure that you're seeing what I'm seeing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, dip 5. We're gonna go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right there. and pull a long strand through, knit 1. Now we're going to go 4 rows below to get a long stitch, knit 1, go 3 rows below, knit 1, 2 rows below, knit 1, and 1 row below, knit 1. Dip 5, it's the same technique we just did. So we're going to do that to the last 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the 5th stitch. Go 5 rows below. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All the way down here. Pull a long strand through, knit 1. 4 rows below, knit 1. 3 rows below, knit 1. 2 rows below, knit 1. 1 row below. Whenever I'm doing that with continental knitting, I'm holding my yarn like this. If you hold your yarn with an extra pinky wrap or an extra index wrap, you might want to let go of one of those so that your tension is not too tight. As you do those dip stitches for continental knitting, it helps to have a grasp on the yarn that easily moves. That helps the dip stitch from not becoming too tight. If you have these extra wraps and the yarn is really tight, it might make a tighter dip stitch. For you English style knitters, let's do the dip 5. Every time you do the dip 5 from the previous dips, make sure it lines up. Do you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Do you see how this is the 5th stitch from the previous dip? That's what should be happening. It shouldn't happen here. It shouldn't happen in between those. It should happen in the same group of 5 stitches. Do you see that previous dip 5? 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're on the right track. Go down 5 rows, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way at the base. It should be right below that first ladder of the new color. So dive in, wrap the yarn around and pull it through, giving it a long stitch, knit 1, 4 rows below, get a long stitch, knit 1, 3 rows below, making a long stitch, and knit 1, 2 rows below, knit 1, and finally 1 row below. Knit 1. All of that was the dip 5 technique, turning 5 stitches into 10 stitches. Keep on going till you reach the last 3 stitches, and then follow these rows very closely to the end of this border section, and make sure you have the recommended number of stripes. If you want to stop early, that's okay to make a smaller border. And there's also optional border rows if you want to extend the border and make it longer. So I'll see you towards the end of this border section. Keep on going with those dips. I just completed row 26 of the border, and this is the recommended border size. I included some additional rows. If you want to make the border bigger, you can follow from rows 27 onward to make a bigger border. But if you make the border larger, then do that at your own risk, okay? I recommend weighing your yarn before you start a stripe to see how much yarn you use for one 6-row stripe, and that will give you a good indication of, can I do 1 more stripe? Or can I do an additional 2 or 3 stripes to my border? So if you follow from rows 27 onward, those are optional, but it might mean you need a little bit more yarn. But I had lots of left over, so I could do an extra stripe of each color, but I'm deciding to save my yarn for my I-cord bind off and fringe. So there's an optional fringe treatment as well. So this is where I recommend most of you stop, unless you're adventurous and you're going off on your own journey, but weigh your yarn to pay close attention for how much yarn you're using so you can guess how much yarn you will need to knit your larger optional border. If you do that larger optional border, it's good to stop after the second row of any new color. So I worked row 25, which was the first row of my new color A, and I worked the wrong side, row 26, for 2 total rows. Once you work 2 total rows of any color, no matter where you are in the border, binding off early or continuing larger, you want to bind off after completing 2 rows of a new color. I just broke my color A. Oh, I still need to break it. Break color A. I'm going to bind off with color B. You can use any color for your I-cord bind off. I'm going to use color B. You could do a striped I-cord bind off if you want. Get creative with these finishing rows. The I-cord bind off requires approximately 10 grams of yarn. So be safe with how much yarn you're leaving for your I-cord bind off. Using the color for your I-cord bind off, knit 2 together through the back loop. This first one might be a little tight because it was that make 1 stitch. There we go. Slip 3 stitches onto the left needle, knit 2 together through the back loop. Slip 3 stitches onto left needle. Repeat from the asterisk until 6 final stitches remain. Binding off all of your stitches. Knit 2 together through the back loop. We're going to bind off all the stitches, except we're going to leave the 3 stitches from the I-cord, and we're going to leave the 3 final stitches. So until you have 6 final stitches remaining. If you hold the yarn in your right hand, knit 2 together through the back loop. Slip 3 stitches onto left needle. Keep on binding off. Make sure your I-cord bind off isn't too tight or too loose. I like my I-cord to look nice and crispy, but I don't want it to feel super, super tight because we want to block our shawl and let it stretch. So as you I-cord bind off, you want to see a little bit of stretch like this. It shouldn't feel too tight. So take it easy. For those of you that are tight knitters, you may want to go up 1 needle size for this bind off. I'm just knitting with an average tension. Do you see my stitches aren't so super tight on the needle? Nice and relaxed, so I don't need to change my needle size. But if you're a tight knitter, feel free to go up 1 needle size. Knit 2, slip, slip, knit, using whatever color you want. Make sure you have at least 10 grams to be safe, maybe 11, maybe 12 grams to be even safer for that I-cord bind off. If you're really worried about running out of yarn as you bind off, you could try doing a bind off with 1 color for a little bit and then bind off with a stripe of another color. You could do a gradient bind off. How cool would that be? So get creative with your bind off and keep on going, and I'll see you at the end of the row. As you reach the end of the I-cord bind off, when you work the final knit 2 together through the back loop, you should have 3 stitches on your right needle and the final 3 stitches on your left needle. Break your yarn. 6 final stitches remain. When your stitches look like this, go ahead and slip your needle out and then back in this way, so that the 6 final stitches are on your 2 needles looking like this. Place that broken tail of yarn onto a tapestry needle and graft the remaining 6 stitches together using Kitchener stitch. Go through the first stitch purlwise, go through that back stitch knitwise, and the front needle knitwise off, purlwise leave it on. The back needle purlwise off, knitwise leave it on. The front needle knitwise off, purlwise leave it on. And the back needle purlwise off, knitwise leave it on. And knitwise off, purlwise off. We did all of the knitting techniques for the Geogradient. Now we just have to weave in some ends. So go ahead and pop that tail from that I-cord Kitchener stitch and just poke that end on the wrong side and do a whip stitch for 8 or 10 stitches. And we're gonna do this weaving in of ends for all of the remaining ends to our project. So hopefully you did the Weavin Stephen as you were knitting, so you don't have to weave in hundreds of ends, but we'll see. It's depending on each project. We'll see how many ends we have to weave in. That's enough. And then once you're done weaving in the ends, you can cut the yarn, but don't cut it close to the fabric. About right there to be safe. And look at the wrong side of your fabric. Oh, and look at that bind off. Oh, it should have a nice stretch to it like this. Not too loose, not too tight. And then if you want to, you can apply fringe. I'm gonna start putting fringe on my shawl now just to show you. These are all my leftover colors, so you can use all of your leftover yarn to make fringe. If you want a nice, decent-sized fringe, then you'll need about 12 grams of each color, but you can do fringe with less yarn. Or you could add some mohair to your fringe. So I'm just gonna take one color at a time, and I wanna make fringe that's about 6 inches long. So about this long, because however much yarn you cut, we're gonna fold it in half, and this will be the approximate length of our fringe off of our edge. And you can always trim it shorter. But I'm gonna cut pieces of yarn that are about 6 inches long. About that long. And the best way I think to do this is to wrap the yarn around your hand or a notebook or something, but I want it to be about 6 inches. So if later I'm gonna cut my yarn here and there at the top, so if I take 6 inches and just fold it over like this, do you see that broken tail of yarn, that's 6 inches? So this, if I wrap my yarn around here, then I know this is about 3 inches and another 3 inches. I'm doing it a little bit longer. So it's always best to make it a little bit longer just to be safe. So you can wrap that around your hand over and over and over and over again. You could do that with all of your leftover yarn or just with however much you want to use. And then I need to do a lot more, but I'm just going to show you that this was the loop that I made. And now you can cut here at the top or the bottom. Well, maybe I should have cut at the bottom. Whatever. These tails are a little too short. So just make one cut, and then you have all of these lengths that are about 6 inches, okay? But customize it. If you want longer fringe, you can have longer fringe. But that little trick of wrapping it around, that circumference should be the total length of the yarn that you want cut. And then you make one cut, and then we're going to be folding the fringe in half like this. So what I'm gonna be doing is taking at least 3 or 4 strands at a time. I'm gonna do my fringe with all of my colors together. So I'm gonna cut all my colors first and then weave it through my border. So let me just show you. I'm gonna cut one of each color. And I'm just gonna show you how I apply the fringe, but then I might make my fringe a little bit more plump and bulky. We'll see. I'm gonna do at least 4 strands held together. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I think that's good for a fringed cluster. And I'm gonna apply it to my border here, and I'm going to apply the fringe every 5 stitches. So I'm gonna put a cluster of fringe here, 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 here. I'm going to put my first cluster of fringe right here. So the best way to apply the fringe is to use a crochet hook. You could also use a knitting needle, but insert the hook into the wrong side from the back to the front, and then fold your fringe cluster in half like this. And then you're gonna pull the fringe through, just a loop of it. And then you want the rest of these tails to come through the loop. I'm just gonna use my fingers to do that. Just pull all of those strands through. And this is our first fringed cluster. At the end of the project, you can trim it, but I'll just trim it right now to show you. Whoop. So you could have fringe that's this long. So take a look. Do you want your fringe to be longer? You could have a really long fringed border. I like the fringed on the Geogradient to be a little shorter, so I might trim my fringe to be about right here. We'll see. But apply it all first, and then to guesstimate how many strands of yarn you're going to need, you could go ahead and count how many locations you want to apply the fringe, and then cut all of your yarn so you make sure you have enough tails, so you have enough clusters of fringe, more than enough to apply it to the shawl. So this is what it looks like when you use all the colors, but how cool would it be to do a cluster of only color A, only color B, C, D, A, B, C, D. You could do a gradient of fringe on your border. I'm going to use all my colors together because I love that little celebration of all the colors. If you have mohair, you could apply some mohair to it as well. If you don't have a crochet hook, you could do the same technique with a knitting needle by popping the knitting needle from back to front. Let's just use these as an example. Fold your fringe in half. Whoop. Pull this loop through, and then pop those ends through your loop, like that, and you have more fringe. So that's what it would look like if you use just one color, but I'm going to use all colors. So get creative, and I'll show you what that finished fringe looks like. So here's the finished shawl. We have the beautiful dip stitches, and that was the first time I ever did that technique, and I am just so obsessed with the beautiful, bold, kind of stripy finish of this shawl. So you're gonna see a lot more of this dip stitch later this season. I've been applying this technique to some hats and cowls and even some sweater designs. So you're gonna see this pattern come back in other ways. It is so fascinating, and the wrong side is equally, maybe even more beautiful. It looks more intricate there. I just love those long little strands of yarn. So I can't wait to see your finished shawls. You can post those in the Ravelry group, and you can also post them on Instagram with hashtag GeogradientMcal 2023. Yeah, GeogradientMcal 2023. So share those photos, tag me. I really want to see how these finished shawls turn out and how you customized your border, making it bigger or with extra colors, and seeing that beautiful creative square just transform with all the other sections. So many fun ways to wear this shawl. And if you're just draping it over one shoulder, I recommend placing just a little wingtip on your shoulder, like that little small bit, and then you could generously toss the long end over. And this could show off more of those sections in fabric. So this is one way to wear it. And then those of you that like to wear it like a scarf, I like to scrunch it up first. Ooh, this is my first time doing crochet. I was so inspired by y'all and all your creative solutions to Clue 1. So those of you that were doing the crochet, thank you for doing that. And you inspired me to crochet finally. I learned how to do a granny square this year. So I hope you learned something new with the shawl. So scrunch it up and then drape it around, and then you could show off any of the extra sections that you want when you wear it more scarfy-like. Beautiful. I just love these vintage effects with this golden color palette. So share your shawl. I can't wait to see how you wear it and what you style it with. And we're going to do another knit along later in the winter. So stay tuned for my annual hybrid knit along. It's not a mystery style knit along. It's a more relaxing, easygoing knit along that you get to knit into the new year, over the holiday season. So keep a lookout on my newsletter at westknits.com for that. And we'll definitely do another mystery knit along next year. And it's going to be so much fun. It's just my favorite time of year. And I really appreciate all of you for getting creative and supporting each other with all of your design variations. And I think this year of any year is the year that is going to be the most variety and the most different modifications of any MCal shawl. So that's the whole spirit, is making it your own, supporting others along the way. And I just really appreciate you all joining me on this adventure. And I can't wait to see and wear our shawls together in upcoming events and such in the future. So thanks for knitting along, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.